Hello everyone and welcome back to level 2. Today we're going to create our player, add some components to him, and add a few additional details to make this start looking like a game. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to go to Project, we're going to go to Assets, we're going to go to Art, open our player folder, and we want to use this idle picture over here, but right now you can see there's many little frogs here, maybe. There's many little frogs there, and we don't want that. So we want just one of them at a time. So I'm going to go down to sprite mode, and I'm going to change it from single to multiple. And then I'm going to click on Sprite Editor, and I'm going to click Apply. Then I'm going to go over here to Slice, click on that, and we have several types. Automatic will find the transparency around your guy and cut it there, which is actually what we want. So I'm going to click on Automatic, and I'm going to click Slice. We might go over the others later, but for now, we're just going to use that. Now you can see each of these have their own little individual square. So I'm going to click Apply, and then I'm going to click on the X. It's going to bring us back here. Now if I go back to Project Art Player Idle, and I click this little arrow right here, it's going to open up all of our little frog frames. There we go, we did it, we're great. So I'm going to create a new player object, and how we're going to do that is simply choose one of our idle sprites, and drag it into here and let go. Now you can see in our sample scene a new item appeared. It says idle. It's the name of this file. I'm going to click on it and press F2 so I can rename it, and I'm going to name it player. I do recommend using the same keywords as I do, capitalization included. When we're programming, if you put a capital P in the program but the name was lowercase p, it will not be able to read your program. So this is very important. For now, I recommend trying to keep the same capitalization as I do in the video. Next, we're going to notice this is really small. If I use mouse wheel, middle mouse wheel, I can scroll in and out. This is actually a little bit too small because you can see here is our camera. If you can't see this, click on gizmos right here, which will turn on and off the camera view. So, being that it's so small, we have two options to increase it. We could use the transform scale over here to make it bigger. But I think a better solution for this is going to be to go back to our idle, the main part of the idle art. And down here where it says pixels per unit, this is pixels per unit, these squares right here. We're going to change it to a lower number. So lower numbers is bigger size, bigger numbers is lower size. I'm going to change it to 20. I think that's a nice good number, nice round number. I'm going to click here. It's going to ask if I want to apply. I'm going to say yes, and boom, big frog. Okay, now I'm going to move over to our hierarchy. I'm going to click on our player. You can see he's highlighted here. I'm going to go in the inspector, and you can see we have two components at the moment. We have a sprite render and a transform. Our transform is going to show our position, rotation, and scale in the world. As we're working in 2D, the Z part is not very important, except do make sure the Z position is always a positive number. And the reason is if it's too big of a negative number in your actual game, you won't be able to see it. So I'm going to give you today's pro tip. If you can't see your player, if you can see your player in scene view, but cannot see him in game view, it's probably because your Z value is a negative number. So he's actually hiding behind the camera. The camera actually is in a 3D world space, even though we can't see it. So get in the habit of making everything a Z value of 0. Okay, next we have our sprite renderer. For those of you who are familiar with Nintendo or Super Nintendo, you've probably heard the word sprite, and you probably think of one frame of a Mario, one frame of a mushroom, etc. In Unity, sprite essentially just means picture. So any type of picture we have in there, it's going to have a sprite renderer on it in general. The first one is sprite, that is the actual picture. The second one is color. We can change the color in here. We will be using that later. And you can flip his X and Y, and a few other options. We will go over this more in depth later. So position and picture. I'm going to close both of these. You can close and open these by hitting these little arrows to the left of the name. Next, I'm going to go to Add Component. We're going to add first a rigid body 2D. So if you type RIG, it should come up. Please make sure you choose the 2D version as we're working in 2D, and it will give you an error otherwise. So the rigid body, I'm going to open that here. The rigid body in Unity is its physics system. Don't worry about the word rigid body, just know it's physics system. And we can control things such as gravity. Positive gravity means you fall down, negative gravity means you fall up, zero gravity means you don't fall. For now, we're not going to worry too much about this, but we will go into depth later. So I'm going to close that. Next, I'm going to go to Add Component, and I'm going to add a box collider. Again, 2D. The 2D part is important. Now, if you've played Street Fighter, you might know the term hitbox and hurtbox. If you've done other programming, you might have heard hit test, hit collider, etc. But basically, any sort of collider you see in Unity is the way that an item can test if it's touching another item. So, if a Mario touches the Goomba touches the Mario dies. The Mario gets small, etc. If you touch a platform, then you don't fall through the platform. So you can see we now have a green line, whereas before we didn't have a green line. Now we do have a green line because we have the box collider. You can see it's around him, and this is okay, but we're going to make it a little bit better. So today's design tip, we're going to go to Edit Collider and click on this little button here. Now you can see these boxes appear. So today's design tip is about hitboxes. We don't want to make everything feel blocky, so what we're going to do, we want to make it feel like he's really interacting with the world. So at the bottom part here, I'm going to drag it up just a little bit. So whenever he's walking, it's not going to look like he's floating above everything. It's going to look like he's walking in the grass. He's going to look like he's actually interacting with it. And his cheek here on the right side, I'm going to pull this in just below his cheek, so it's going to look like he presses his cheek up against the wall and actually touches the wall. And then the bandana, it wouldn't make sense if a enemy touched the bandana and you get hurt, because that's just cloth. So we're going to drag it all the way in, slightly inside of his cheek. And then on the top, in case we hit a roof block or something, we want him to feel like he's kind of smashing into it, not just touching it and floating back down. So basically, we're just going to drag all these little hitboxes in slightly. Trust me now, and you'll see later that this is a good option for this. So at this point, we've added a physics system and a touching system, a collider system, to our player. So we're going to add some other world objects to make this feel a little more fun. So first thing I want you to notice, is we have a little asterisk right here and also up here. That means we've made changes that haven't been saved yet. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control and S, and it's going to save it. You're going to see this asterisk go away. You can also hit File and Save if you want. I recommend getting in the habit of hitting Control S pretty constantly, as Unity is a very robust, powerful program. It also means it has more places where it can fail and crash. Okay, so Control S very often. All right, so next we want to add a couple items. I'm going to go to our project, Assets Art, and I'm going to take this BG1 forest and drag it onto our screen here. Try to put it around so it's sticking out on all sides of our camera view, because we don't want to see any black screen, etc. whenever we start our game. If I click on our game view, I can see there's no black screens. Go back to scene view. Or if I click on our main camera, it shows what the camera is going to see around there. And that's good, but sometimes we'll have something with a wider screen, or small glitches can happen. So we're going to do one thing to prevent that. I'm going to go to Hierarchy, BG1 Forest, and I'm going to go to Transform, and I'm going to change the X scale to 1.2 and the Y scale to 1.2. Then I'm going to hit S, Control S to save, and then I'm going to press in here, I'm going to press W. It's going to give me the ability to slide this around, and I'm going to slide it around where I think it feels good, and I like it actually about where it was. Okay, so next we need to add some platforms so our guy can stand on it. So I'm going to click over here on Platforms in our Project Art folder, Platforms. And again, we want to change this from Sprite Mode Single to Multiple. And we're going to click on Sprite Mode, and I'm going to click Apply. And then when I go into this, I'm going to click Slice, Automatic, Slice. And now this is almost good, except you can see these have these two items together, because remember, it finds transparency, and there's no transparency before this. So this second column of blocks is what we're going to use as our platforms. So I'm going to grab this little blue dot here. I'm going to drag it in, so we make a perfect square right here. Click on the next one, drag it in for perfect square. Click on the next one, drag it in for perfect square. And oops. You can also mouse wheel in and out to see if you're okay. And then after I have 3 squares here, I'm going to go ahead and click apply and then go back out. Now, if I open up my platform again by clicking on this little arrow right here in my art folder, it's going to open all of them up. You can see our beautiful green platform that I'm going to drag out to here. Oh no, our block is behind the background. What do we do? Well, I'm going to, oops, I have 2 forests here. I'm going to delete one. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on our BG forest here, and you can open up our sprite render. Now you can see if I open up additional settings, we have some things called sorting layers and order in layer. Everything on the default layer will be shown next, everything on the next layer, everything on the next layer. But within the same layer, we have an order. So if 2 items are on the same layer, if they have the same number, it's kind of chosen randomly. So we don't want it to be chosen randomly. We don't want sometimes our player to be behind the background. So what we're going to do, on our background, order and layer, I'm going to put -1000. And now you can see it appears behind everything. You have about -32,000 to +25,000 to work with. In general, I do -1000 for backgrounds, -100 for things that are going to be behind the player, 0 for the player, 100 for things that need to appear in front of the player, and 1000 for UI items where it'll show your lives, etc. Those numbers are arbitrary, but it gives me enough space to work. If I need to put 3 or 4 things piled in front of the player, I can put them at 99, 100, 101, etc. It gives you a lot of room to work with. So anyways, we'll keep this at -1000. And then I'm going to hit Control S to save. I'm going to click over on the hierarchy onto my platform 1. And I'm going to press F2 to rename it. And I'm going to name it platform_grass and hit enter. I recommend for naming convention, you use the category and then the type. So the big category and the small type. Because later we'll have platform grass, platform sand, platform concrete, platform mushroom, whatever we have. And it's going to get confusing if you have 150 items in your thing, so it makes it easy to search. Anyways, so on our grass platform, you can see it's small just like the other one. So just like the other one, we're going to go over to platforms. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to change the pixels per unit to 20, the same as the other. And then I'm going to click into the scene view, and it's going to ask me if I want to apply. I'm going to click yes. Okay. Again, if you when you're changing the pixels per unit, you have to click on the main image, not its cut parts. So if you just see name pivot border, it's because you're not on the wrong thing, or you're not on the right thing. So click on the main platform. Art. Okay. Now we have our platform grass here. It is showing it's the size it's supposed to be, but it's a little big. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to transform, and the Y value I'm going to put 0.5, 0.5. And then the X scale value, I'm going to put at 2.5 over here. So that was the Y scale and X scale, and it's going to make it long and thin. Now if I press play, you might think he's going to land on the platform, but he's not. He's going to fall forever. And maybe some of you have already guessed why, but that is because we do not have a collider yet. So it doesn't know that it's touching the platform. So I'm going to go to add, I'm going to go to inspector, add component. I'm going to type in box, and then a box collider 2D is going to appear. And because this is already a square item, the box collider 2D is going to fit it pretty perfectly. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Now if I press play in our play mode up here, he's going to fall down, and you can see he feels like he's kind of standing on it rather than just floating. And that's because we changed the box collider. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit play again to exit play mode. And that's going to finish us up for this lesson. I will see you in the next one.